Hello everyone. So in this video I'll show you how to call the action using the web API endpoint which is present in the Dynamics. So in this video you will also learn how to set up your Dynamics onto the Azure portal to call those endpoints which is present into the Dynamics into the external site. So you will learn a lot of things in this video. So let's proceed. So for the endpoints, you have to go to your settings area and then the customizations, and here in the developer resource you will find those endpoints. So you will see we have two different types of endpoints: the discovery service discovery endpoints and the instance endpoints web API. So mostly in the Dynamics, to fetch any record details and any operations, we will be using this endpoint web API endpoint for any operations. So and the use of this discovery web API is that when you have access to the multiple instance, then and what you want to fetch the details of those instance, like what are the names of the instance, what are the endpoint details of those instance, that time we will be using the discovery web API or discovery service. The useful of this use of these two are same, which is the nothing but providing the details of the dynamic instances where you have access to, and what are the related important informations we have with the instance. You will get that. So mostly in the real time, what will happen is, say when you are running on the on-premise, so on the same server you will configure the Dynamics multiple instances, and you will give access to this you will give access to users to those instances. So one user will have access to the different instances like dev instance, test instance, and pre-prod and productions, like that. So those instances, and the user who is having access to those instances, if they want to find the details of those instances, endpoint details of those instances, that time we will use the discovery services. So this is very helpful in that. And coming to the organization service, so if you see the description, it is SOAP type service which provide the access to the Dynamics 365. So it will give you access to the data and metadata of your Dynamics. So when you want to do any operations of any, like creating, deleting, or updating any record into Dynamics, you will need some methods, right? Some operations method you need. So those methods will be present by this organization service. Using this organization service, you can create your service client, you can create this instance of the service, and then using that service you can do those operations. So that is the use of this organization service. So that was a quick intro about those points. So in this video I will be using this endpoint URL, and using this endpoint URL I'll show you how to call the action. So but before I go to the calling the action, let me show you what is this and how it is authenticated and how it is used. So these endpoint URLs are not accessible outside. Why I'm saying is that, so this API, endpoint API, when you are putting into the web resource, say I have added, this is my solution. So inside this solution I have the web resources, and I have added a couple of resources. So like that, if you will add multiple web resource file or JavaScript, and inside the JavaScript you will be trying to access these endpoints doing the OData query operation. So since your JavaScript is present inside the Dynamics, so it will be automatically authenticated, and you can perform those operations which you want to do using this endpoint. Say using this endpoint, I want to get all the contacts present in my Dynamics. Say here, copy this and paste here, and using this endpoint I want to get all the contacts. So just after slash you have to put the contacts, you will get all the contacts. So what happened, since I have logged into this window, and this window, all the window which are open now, new tabs, so those will be authenticated by the login user here. But in the same thing, if I want to do in the private window, the meaning to say of the private window is that the external site, you can see the external things which is not authenticated by my credential, then that time I cannot access this. So these are not open endpoint ideally, if you'll say. So let me copy this and try to open in the private window here, and you will see it is not connecting here. It is not connecting because it will give phone auto error, means it is not authorized to access these endpoint, because since here I had the access because I had login to Dynamics my credential, so these tabs I had the access because this is in the same session present. These tabs are present inside the same session of this login user, so this API has the access to call that endpoint, and then it gave me data. But when I'm calling to the external, then I cannot access that because it's not authenticated. So meaning is that this API, endpoint API, is not open endpoint. We have to authenticate it first and to call this any and to do any operation. So how we will do that? So for that we have to we can do the different way. So the easiest way is that you can create the new application, new app into the Azure portal, and then you can give the API permissions. So I'll show you that way. Another way is that you can create your own custom endpoints, web API, that is called CRM web API. You can C# web API, that is API, ASP API. You can find those projects you can create inside that project. API means ASP API, web API. Inside that project you can set the credentials, generic credentials, like that. This is the user, so like that, like this user, you can create one generic credential, and you can do the create, update, all those operations using that credential. And that endpoint which you will create using the web API project, you can host onto this some cloud, and like Azure or any AWS, you can host there, and then you can use those API to the external website. So that is another way also. So in this video I'll show you how to configure this Dynamics onto the Azure portal and how we can use this endpoint. So let me log into the here portal. So already have logged into the Azure portal here. So first of all we have to register your new app. So we'll go to the app registration. You can search here the app registration, you will get here. So you go to the app registration. So here you can use this new registration, so to register the new application. So when you click on new, you have to give the new app name here, and you can select the accounts access how you want to. So since this is my instance name, so it is created with a single tenant. If you have multiple, like if multiple users want to access that, you can do that. So you can select your preferences how you want to access this application, and you can just click the register. So once your application is registered, so it will look like this. So already I have registered the Dynamics application. So let me open this. So when you have registered the application, you will see the application ID will be generated. So this application ID is useful while creating the application user into the Dynamics. So you copy this application ID into your some notepad. Okay, so once it is created, now few things we have to do with this application. So first of all, we have to go to the API permissions, and we have to give the permissions to your app, and we have to give the Dynamics permissions. So since already I have given the API permissions, so you can see the minimum API permissions we need is Azure Service Management, then Dynamics, and the Microsoft Graph. It will come automatically. So you can go to the app permissions here, and you can select the Dynamics here. So when you select this, it will ask the permissions. You can give that one. So you can give the delegated permissions, and you can select the delegated permissions, and you can give the access to that. So user impersonation you can select, and you can give the permissions to that. Okay, and once you have Dynamics, you have to give the Azure Service Management permissions also. So after giving these two permissions, if you want any other, you can add that. So minimum I think I have given the Azure Service Management and Dynamics permissions to this. So once it is given, then it will look like this, and we have to grant this. So we have to grant the permission for this organization. So just click on that to give the permissions to that. So you have to make it yes to give the permissions, grant the permissions to grant the permissions of this API to those instances. So once it is set, permissions you have set, now you will go to the certificates and secrets, and here you will add the new secret, and we have to add the new secret to generate the token. So here you click the new secret client, and you can select, give the name, say like something test secret, and add. So once it is created, you will see the one value will be created here, this one secret key value. So you have to copy this one, so it will be visible only one time. So you make sure you copied this one, and we will use this to generate the token, authentication token. Since already I have this secret key, so I will be using this secret key. This is already I have here, so I will be deleting here now, just now, which I have created. So I'll delete this one, but in your system, make sure you have created this secret and copied this value, secret key value. So we have to copy this. Later on we will use while generating the authentication token. So let me delete this here. So this value already I have copied in my notepad, so later on I'll use this. So this secret key I will be using. So now we have set up. So two things we have done. We have given the API permissions to the Dynamics and Azure Service, and then we have created the secrets here. So secret key here. So now once we have here, we'll go to the overview and go to the endpoints. So here you will see we have different types of endpoints, and to get the token we will use this authentication 2.0 version of the endpoint. So auth 2.0 we will use to get the authentication key. So before that, to get the token and all, let me set up the Dynamics application user. So as I mentioned before, when you go to the overview, and here we have the application ID. So using this application ID, I will be getting the new application user. So I'll go to the my Dynamics here. I'll go to the security, and then here with the users, you will create the new application user here. Can change the view here to the application user. So already I have created the new application user. Already I have created my application user. If you want, you can create the new application user here, and here you have to give the application name. You can give anything username, like say test API, something like that. WebAPI API user, and then here you have to give the this one application ID which you have got here. So copy this, and when you give here, so it will be automatically searched and it will be mapped. So suppose if you're doing any changes, so it will not find. You can see it will give the error if it is wrong. If the application is not found on the Azure, then it will give you this error. So this API ID is not found. So any wrong ID it will not accept. So you have to give the proper ID here. Okay, like that you can create, and finally the full name you can set how you want to display, and then the primary emails you can copy, you can do that. So once you have set up the user, then you have to give the permissions. So for that let me show you that. So this is the user I have created like this. So I'll open this this user here, and you can see this is the application user I have set up. So in the Dynamics, you can create n number of the application users. So application users are not licensed one. The user which will log in here into the Dynamics, these are the licensed users. So for these users, you have to purchase the license, but for the application user, it is not required. You can create n number of the application users, and mostly it is used for the integration purpose. So you can configure n number of application user here. So once the user you have created, you have to give the roles. So for all the users which you want to do any operations, you have to make sure some roles are specified to that. So I have given the system admin role here for this user. So any operations which I'll do into the Dynamics using this user, so it will happen as admin privilege. So let's proceed now. Once we have configured the application user with the application ID which is present in our here Azure portal with the application which we have created, which we have registered. So now I will be using the Postman to call the these endpoints here, the endpoints to generate token. So how we will do? So let me flip to the Postman. So this is the Postman I have opened. So first of all, let me use this second options to get the token. So I'll copy this URL, endpoint URL, and paste here. To generate the token, we have to use the post operation, and then we in the header, it's not required instance. In the body, we have to write a couple of things. So we have to make the type as a x-www.form.lens coded. So this option we will use to generate the token, and we have to add some key value. So some key values are like grant type, or what it should be client credentials. Then we have to set the application ID, that is nothing but client ID. We have to use the client ID, means here these are the client ID, right? This is this ID we have to use as client ID. Then we have to use the secret ID. So this one which we have, and then also the scope. The scope we will use to get the to which instance, for which dynamics or for which applications we want to generate the token. So we have to define the scope. So these things already I have copied here. So let me copy this here, copy this, and you can go to the here bulk edit, select this, and you can paste here, and then again change to key value. So once you set this, you can see the things here. So we have to give the colon here, and then left side will be your key name and right side will be your value. So like that you set and then paste here, then change to the key value, then it will be automatically set here. So we have to give the grant type, client credentials, secret, and then client ID, and then a scope. So scope, you have to define the dynamics which you have given here permissions. You can see in the API permissions. So you have given the dynamics API permissions. So this API permissions you have given here, right? So which you have connected here. You can see the while connecting the dynamics, you have given the dynamics credentials, right? So while connecting the permissions here, so this dynamics URL we have to give here, and in the URL till .com we have to give, and after /.default you can append. So it means this is your default scope of the application. So the scope of this token to the default application is this one. So once we have set, now we can use the send request to generate the token. So let me send this, and we'll see if token is getting generated. Yeah, you can see the access token has been generated. So this access token we can use to do any operations into the dynamics. So here let me add the new tab, and as I mentioned before, since in the external side I was not able to do this operation, so let me show you here the same thing using the Postman, and I'll try to get this operation. So I'm performing the get operation on the contacts to find all the contacts. You can see it will give me 401 unauthorized access. So same thing what we are getting here, right? Error 401. So this is not authorized. So means externally this API is not authenticated to do the any operations. So for that we have to use our token which we have generated. So when we use this token here, let me copy this token. So copy this token, and we have to we have to authorize this one. So we'll go to the header here, and we'll add another key that is called the authorization here. And with this authorization we have to append the text called bearer, and then here after that, so this is bearer, and after one space then you have to paste your token here. So now what we want to do is, I want to call this API with the authentication of this access token. So what this access token did is, this access token is found with the client credentials of the client secret key and client ID which we have set up into the portal here, and with this client ID, we have already set up the user into the dynamics here, the application user. So whatever the role of this application user is having, it will perform that. So since this user is having the admin role, so with this user I can access the data of the contact. So this is what I am going to do now. So let me send this get request using this token. Send this. So you can see now the data has been fetched successfully. So this is how it works. So, but let me verify you one thing. Say for this application user which we have set up using the client ID of this one here with this client ID. So if this client ID is not having any roles, so let me remove any roles I have given here. So let me remove this role. So this user is not having any roles now into the dynamics. So ideally our operations should not be get performed, right? So it should not perform any action. Means it should throw the error like it is not having a role or something like that, isn't it? So now here the same thing I'll do here. First of all, I'll send another request to get the latest token, first token. So let me copy this again, and I'll go to the get here, and inside the authorization I'll change the token. Now since this time I'm going to call the same API, but the user which is trying to trying to fetch the account details with this user is not having access to that. So ideally it should throw me the error. You can see, yeah, see the user with the ID, this one is not having any role assigned, so it cannot do any operations. So this is how you can set up the dynamics, and you can call this API with this passed token into the any code. Like say you have the code option here, you can see here in the Postman, and we can see we have n number of the types we can call that. So if you want to use the C#, then you can use the REST sharp to call the this API to generate the token. If you want to use the JavaScript, then we have the XML HTTP request, and we have the fetched, we have the jQuery also to fetch the token, and we have the Python script, we have the Node.js script. So we have n number of way of calling, n number of code, I mean sample code to call the API, and same thing is for the any endpoint of the dynamics. So that is the beautiful feature of the endpoint which is in the dynamics. So here as I mentioned in the beginning, I will be calling the endpoint, I will be calling the action using this endpoint. So how we will do that? So let me go to my solution, and inside this solution already I have configured the new process. This is called action create account. So this action already I have configured, and what it is doing is it is very simple. It is taking one input parameter by this name, and by this input parameter it is creating the new account here. So if you go to the setup here, I have given the dynamic value of the account name here, which is my input parameter. You can see the in argument we have the input argument. So when you select this sorry here, so I have set up the input argument here. You can see when you go to this text field, you can see in the argument we have the one input argument. So it will display here. You can add, then you can dynamically add here. So by this name which I pass into the action, it will create the new account for me. So this is very simple, and finally the last step is to successfully close that operation. So and this is very simple action. So I will be calling this action using the web API. So same way I will use the Postman to call that. So if you want to call this action into the JavaScript, then you can same code, you can go to the code, and you can get the code to call that action into the JavaScript also. So let me open the new tab here, and I'll take the root URL here. So here this one, root API, this one, and after that I have to specify my action. So here inside this action, this is the name of the schema name of the action. So prefix is new. So here in the Postman, I'll give the new underscore the action name. So since this action we are calling, so all the action when you call into the dynamics using the API, we have to make it as a post message. And since this action is taking one input parameter here, so we have to set the body. If we don't have any input parameter here as input argument here, that time the body is not required. So we have to go to the body here, and will select the raw type body, and here we have to say the JSON object here for the body. So since this action is having the one input parameter with this name, I will be passing one body request with this name. So likewise, if you have any n number of input argument, you can set up here. And here I'll give say name as a test Sandeep. So this is the name of the account I want to create here, and since I have only one input argument, so I'll set here only one JSON object of the input. If you have n number of input parameter, you can set up here, and those value in the same order you have to set up here in the body part of the request. So once it is done, then you can call the API. So but before that, make sure your action is active. So currently it is in draft, so let me make it as active. So here now my action is activated, so I can call this action now using the web API. So here I'm using this API, and I have set the body, and I want to create the action with this name. So I want to create the account with this name. So let me send this as a post request, and before that it will not work because in the header I have not set the authentication, right? Let me show you that. So if you send now, it will not work because it is unauthorized. So for that, what we have to do, we have to go to the headers, and here we have to add the authorization here, and then we have to set up the bearer authorization access key here, access token we have to set up. So go to the token URL and send this again to get the latest refreshed token here. So copy this, and here inside after the in the authorization, after the barrier, you set the token here and send this again. So now it should work fine. So here we have to write the some few things. I think the post require the content type, so we have to add in the header as a content type. So let me add that. So here content type, it should be the application/JSON, and here we will write the accept, and here it is application and JSON. So since we'll have duplicate here, let me remove, it should be application/JSON here, and since already we have one here, so let me uncomment this, and here we have the accept, and check this one. So I want to pass the content type as a application/JSON, and the accept also application/JSON in the header, and then yeah, body part is also fine. So everything is fine now, so I think it should work. So let me send this request again. So it is showing the user with the since this user is not having any access, so the same problem. So I'll go to my user here, I'll give my role, I'll set the roles again back to the system admin. So here I'll say this user as system admin. Okay, fine. So now the user has been set. Now once I'll set the again, so I think it should work. So the status of anything with a 200 and 200 range, since it has done successfully, the status 204 indicates the operations which we want to do, it has done this successfully, but it is not having anything to return. So that is no content, means it has nothing to return with this operation. So to verify that if it has worked perfectly, so I'll go to the advanced find. I already have set up the lookup for the accounts created on today. In the results, we'll have that account created. Yeah, you can see this is the account which is just now created with this call now. So this is how you can set up the dynamics on the Azure portal, and you can call the actions using the endpoint of the dynamics. So these endpoints you can use in the different code, like inside the C# code if you want, you can use inside the JavaScript if you want, you can use that, and this is how you can set up. So I hope this video was useful for you and you have learned how to do the integrations with the API, and thank you for watching this video, guys.